You know who executed at a high level all the time? Our next guest, Dennis Pitta, joining us now on the Desert First Credit Union hotline. Dennis, I can't help but think of this today. With Spencer and Jerem gone today really was your chance to jump up on the co-host depth chart for this show.
It is. And one thing I've learned is they'll hand the reins to this show over to about anybody.
Oh! Bringing the heat right out of the
Maybe I
gate.
have a shot at this thing.
Hey, you know what? Me and Jason talked about this as far as head coaches losing and getting kicked out the playoffs and whatnot, season being over, and then just coming on their post game interview and just destroying the media and having all these negative remarks. Kind of like you, man. We call that loser's limp. So
I try and tear down the media with every opportunity that I get.
So, Dennis, we're sitting here talking about a 6-game losing streak for the BYU football team. How difficult is that to grasp?
Well, I think as a BYU fan, it's difficult to grasp because you're not used to it. When's the last time? I think it was, 1968?
68.
Was the last time BYU had a 6-game losing streak. So it's just not something this fan base is ever used to going through. And over the last few years, I mean, this is a team that's won 8, 9, 10 games consistently. So a 6-game losing skid is difficult to swallow. But fortunately, we face ECU this week and the nation's worst defense. So I'm confident that'll turn around.
Right. Dennis, I think that this game will show us a lot as far as, what were some of the real challenges of this BYU offense and just the team? Was it inexperience, lack of execution, or was it, the strength of schedule? And so, going into this game, if BYU does, let's say, lose or
they're not losing, Brian.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say lose. Continues with their struggles. Where do you go from here? Do you think it's time? Would you say it's time to jump off the edge, or would you say, okay, now I can finally dive into some deeper issues and see really where they stem from?
Well, first off, if BYU loses to ECU this week, I think it's time to just look forward to the basketball season. We can start talking about that every week. But number two, like we mentioned, this is the worst defense in college football. So we're going to see what this BYU offense is this week. We're going to see them at their very best because they're not going to face a worse defense than they faced this week. So this is going to be the ceiling for this offense. And so we'll see how it all plays out. I expect to put up a bunch of yards and be able to run the ball just by nature of the fact that they can't stop anybody. And so they kind of have an opportunity to set the bar here. Hopefully they set the bar high, and we can enjoy a win here. And I think, personally, I heard Jason mention this earlier. I don't think there's any way we lose this game. I think we'll be able to run the ball. We won't have to throw it that much, hopefully, but if we do, we can kind of just, take some play-action shots, do things that are within the scope of Tanner's ability right now.
Dennis, if BYU were to, say, win 5 of the next 6 games, would that be enough positives to end the season on, or is this really bowl game or bust in order to salvage this year?
Well, I don't think it's bowl game or bust, but I think I personally would be disappointed if we only won 5 of the final 6. I think we have the potential and the ability to win 6 of 6. Now, being able to do that is another story in the way that they've played and kind of kept finding ways to lose is something that they'll have to overcome over these final 6 games because you lose a lot of confidence when you lose 6 straight. You lose confidence, you lose your identity, you lose your ability to win games mentally and to figure out how to win games. And so there might be a couple close games on the stretch here. We'll see if this team can figure out, a way to win, and something they haven't been able to do thus far.
Dennis, this is a question that it's probably going to be hard to answer because this is going off of straight speculation. We're not behind the scenes, right? We don't know the real ins and the outs and the details. But we know playing under Bronco that it didn't matter if you were a first-round draft pick, if you were a 5-star recruit, if you weren't doing your job and executing the way he wanted you to, you were benched. And there's no questions asked. With this team here, I'm seeing the same mistakes over and over and over again. I know some of that is inexperience and injuries and things like that. But with the back half of this schedule being easy, when do you, as a coach, make that decision to, okay, I'm gonna start benching these guys, or since I've let them ride it through the first half, I'm just gonna continue to let them go through the second half?
Well, it's an interesting question because you're right. There's no way to know. There's no way to really answer that without knowing, what's being said in meeting rooms, what's being taught. There's just so much that goes into that. And you're right. With Bronco, there was a extremely high level of accountability from the walk-on to the 5-star recruit. And I don't even know if we had any 5-star recruits.
No,
Then to the 4-star recruit. I was a 0-star recruit, so I wasn't getting treated that well. But so. The level of accountability, I think, needs to increase. Exactly what you said, Brian, because we've seen, and it's most apparent in situations like this where you see fumbles happening over and over again, and you talk about Ula Tulatau. Did I say that last name right?
You did. Nice job.
I've been working on it.
Nice.
I've been practicing in the mirror for the last couple of days. So it's so frustrating to watch as a fan because it's like, how can this guy continue to fumble and fumble? At some point, he needs to not play. And that's how it's handled on my team currently with the Ravens. If somebody has a fumbling problem, boom, you're out of the game, and you're not seeing the field again.
Right.
Until you absolutely have to, maybe through injury or whatever it may be. And there's just a high level of accountability that needs to take place, and I just don't see it with this team right now. Dennis. Now, that's looking from the outside in. We don't really know what's being said, and there might be, more than that being said.
Right.
But it just doesn't seem that way.
Dennis Pitta joining us on the Desert First Credit Union hotline. Now, this is something that gets brought up quite a bit, and it's not just in football, it's any sport. And I've never personally bought into it, but I've also never been in this situation. Dennis, you and Brian can speak to more of this because you guys have been the athletes that have been through this. But after traveling to Mississippi last week, this team has to fly to the Eastern time zone. Is that much travel in such a short period of time a big deal at all?
Well, first of all, Jason, I'm glad you said that you're not an athlete because I think it was important for the viewers to understand that.
Credibility, man, just shot up way out the roof, man. Good job.
That's exactly right. Number two, traveling across the country is difficult. Now, on our team on the Ravens, and I keep saying our team, I'm obviously not part of that team anymore, but
they're still your Ravens, though.
At some point.
Yeah, you're still there, man.
And so I've sat in a ton of meetings where we talk about schedule, where we talk about flying from different time zones. We just were a part of a London trip, going from here to London, and that was such a big deal, talking about the logistics of sleep and everything that goes on in that. And so everything that they say in those meetings is it's more difficult to travel from the West Coast to the East Coast because it shortens the day. If for whatever reason jet lag is increased, because your body can handle a longer day, it can't necessarily handle a shorter day. So with all that being said, it's going to be difficult for a West Coast team like BYU to travel all the way to the East Coast. How much of a factor that will play in the game, I don't really know. I tend to believe that some of that stuff doesn't matter all that much. Maybe it matters, a couple plays here and there, or maybe at the end of a game you're feeling a little bit tired or heavy. But I do think there will be some kind of a factor that's played there, and it is more difficult coming out to the East Coast.
So based off of life math that Jason has taught me, over the last 25 minutes of this show, what you're saying is you're probably about 99.3% confident now, right? Since that last statement of guys traveling back to the East Coast.
99% confident that we're going to win?
Yes,
In this case, well, you've learned a lot from the non-athlete Jason. That's what you were saying?
We don't need to keep bringing that part up.
What I'm saying is, a lot of people and fans and us analysts, former players, they are really confident because of the just the talent level, right? Just toe to toe talent. BYU should be fine. But I'm still a little bit nervous and wary just because of what I seen at Utah State and what I seen at Boise. So I was trying to find a little bit there to get you on my side, on the dark side.
Well, listen, unlike like many fans across the country, Probably agree with you, Brian. I mean, it's a little unnerving. This is a team you should beat. This is the worst defense in the country. There's so many things that play into our hands, right?
Yep.
But for some reason, this team has not found ways to be good at football this year. Whether they have all the talent in the world or whatever it may be, it hasn't looked good.
Yeah.
And I think you can point fingers at coaching. I think you can point fingers at players. I think you can point fingers at so many different areas. But for whatever reason, it has not come together on the field. And so for that reason, it's hard to be 100% confident in this game. Even though it's ECU, we should beat them. This should be a non-contest. But for whatever reason, I'm kind of with you. It's a little bit unnerving.
The Ravens are at the Vikings this weekend. First of all, that's a lot of purple in one stadium. Second of all, are your boys going to get a much-needed victory this weekend?
Well, let's hope so. It's a much-needed victory for sure because, like BYU, the Ravens' offense has looked ugly at times during this season. And you look at last game, we lost to a 1-4 Bears team and did nothing offensively. I mean, it was really a tough game. And so the Ravens are in much need of a win. Now, it's going to be difficult to go up to Minnesota and play against that defense with the offense that we currently have. So we'll have our work cut out for us. But hopefully they can pull out a win, and hopefully Bronson Kafusi can get a couple sacks or do something out there and, help his chances. But we'll see. It's going to be a tough game. You never know.
Dennis, great stuff as always. Appreciate the chat, and we'll talk to you next week, man.
All right. Thanks, Jason and Brian.
All right. See ya.
Right, man.
That's Dennis Pitta on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.